My name is Wade. I'm 33, and 2 summers ago, I almost walked into my own grave. I was camped along the Copper River in South Central Alaska. Deep backcountry, no trails, no cell service, just glacial water and spruce trees, and the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I'd been out there 2 days already, alone. That was the point. A business partnership had gone bad, the kind of bad where lawyers get involved, and friendships don't survive. I needed distance from people, all of them. It was just past noon. I had a fire going, coffee in a metal cup. The river hummed in the background. A light rain had started, soft against the leaves. I was staring at the water. When I looked up, a man was standing at the edge of my campsite. I didn't hear him arrive. No footsteps, no rustling. He was just there. Average height, backpack, gear that looked right. He seemed like any other hiker. He asked if I knew where the shelter was. Told me he'd heard there was a public cabin somewhere nearby. I'd seen a thin path leading into the trees on my second day. Figured it probably led to one of those unmaintained shelters you find on remote routes up here. I pointed him in that direction. He thanked me, smiled, walked off into the rain. I went back to my coffee. The rain picked up as the hours passed. By 9 p.m. the light was fading. August in Alaska still gives you some darkness by then. Not pitch black, but enough shadow to lose shapes in the trees. The rain had settled into a constant rhythm. Then I saw him again, walking out of the trees from the same direction he'd gone. The same man, same gear, same easy stride. He told me he couldn't find the shelter. Asked if I'd show him the path. I told him it was right where I pointed. Straight shot, maybe 10 minutes. He shook his head, told me he'd walked for an hour and found nothing. Asked me to walk him there. Told me he didn't have a tent. Insisted he needed that shelter tonight. Something felt off. An hour of walking, and he never found a trail. That was 10 minutes away. Where had he been all that time? But I felt bad, and the rain was getting heavier, and it wasn't far. So I grabbed my pack and went. We walked side by side at first. Then he fell behind. Just a step. Then 2. I kept glancing back. He was always the same distance away. His face had gone quiet. No more small talk or smiling. The rain filled every gap in the silence. I couldn't hear his footsteps over the sound of it. 10 minutes later, I found the path. Exactly where I said it was. It cut through the trees toward a dark shape at the end. The shelter. Even from here I could see it. Small, no door, windows broken out, wood soft with rot. There was no way he missed this. We walked closer. The shelter looked worse up close. Bare concrete floor. Stained. The walls had marks on them, tally marks, scratched into the wood. Groups of 5, rows and rows of them. Someone had been counting days. I was staring at the marks when I realized the man had gone quiet. I turned around. He was standing maybe 10 feet behind me, not walking, not talking. His hand was at his side, and in it was a knife. Short blade and a fixed grip, the kind you don't use for camping. His face was still. His eyes were flat. "Get inside," he muttered. His voice had changed. Monotone, no expression behind it. Like reading a line he'd rehearsed. I asked him what he was doing. "Get inside," he repeated. My blood went cold. But my legs were still working. There was space between us. 10 feet, maybe 12. The shelter was behind me. The trees were to my left. I dropped my pack and I ran. Into the trees, through the rain, branches hitting my face, mud pulling at my boots. I didn't look back. I expected to hear him behind me. Footsteps, breathing, something, but the rain swallowed everything. I couldn't tell if he was chasing me or standing exactly where I left him. I found a cluster of fallen trees and crawled underneath, pressed myself into the mud. My heart was slamming in my chest. I lay there for 30 minutes, maybe longer. The rain was so loud. I couldn't hear anything else. That was the worst part, not knowing. When I finally moved, I crept back toward the shelter, staying in the trees, moving slow. He wasn't there, but my pack was gone too. Phone, wallet, keys, everything. I circled back toward my campsite. The rain had eased to a drizzle now. I could feel my pulse in my throat. As the campsite came into view, the fire was burning, bright, high. Someone had fed it. My tent was still up. My pack was sitting in the middle of the campsite, right next to the fire, positioned carefully, like a gift. Nobody was visible. I stood at the tree line. Every part of me wanted to grab it and run, but that was exactly what he wanted. Then he appeared, walked out from the darkness, on the far side of the fire, calm, unhurried. He tossed a stick into the flames, sat down, and just waited. He didn't look around, didn't search the trees. He knew I'd come back. The fire would bring me. He knew I had nowhere else to go. I turned around, I found the main trail, and hiked through the rain, in the dark for 5 hours. No flashlight, no food or phone. I reached the road around 4 a.m. Took another 2 hours to flag down a truck. I told the police everything. They went out with rangers the next morning. Nothing. My tent and pack were gone, like someone had erased the campsite. The ranger checked the shelter, empty with no sign of anyone. But the tally marks were still there. I stood in the doorway and counted them myself. Groups of 5, row after row, over 200 days. The ranger told me the shelter had been closed for 4 years. Nobody was supposed to be out here. 3 weeks later, I saw a news report. A body had been found in the backcountry, south of the Copper River. Unidentified male, decomposed, found near an abandoned shelter. They released a photo of the area. I recognized the trees and the path. I recognized the doorway. They never caught anyone. The case went cold, but I know. I sat across a fire from the man who did it, and he let me go. I still don't know why. My name is Connie. I'm 48. I've been a pharmacy technician for 22 years. My husband passed 2 years ago. Cancer, the slow kind, the kind where you grieve before they're even gone. After the funeral, I stayed in our house in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Small town, quiet street, the kind of place where people bring casseroles when someone dies and check on you for a month. Then they stop. I was learning how to be alone, not well, but I was trying. Last spring, a man named Mark moved into the house next door. He was in his mid-40s, friendly, kept his yard clean. The first week he was there, he fixed my porch railing without asking, brought over brownies, introduced himself with a handshake and a smile that felt a little too wide. But I told myself I was just out of practice with people. Over the next few weeks, Glenn became a constant presence, waved every morning, asked how I was doing, told me he understood the silence. I needed to believe it was kindness. The first strange thing happened. About a month after he moved in, I was getting ready for bed, standing at my bedroom window, closing the curtains. I glanced across the gap between our houses. Mark's window was directly opposite, maybe 30 feet away. His curtain moved, like someone had just stepped back. I told myself it was nothing. Wind from a vent, a cat, anything. I closed my curtains and went to sleep. 2 nights later, I woke up at 2 a.m. for water, walked past the bedroom window and stopped. A faint red dot was moving on my bathroom wall. I froze. It drifted slowly across the tile, then the mirror, then it disappeared. I turned off every light and stood in the dark, watching. The dot came back, smaller now, coming from the direction of Mark's house. It moved across the wall, like it was searching, slowly, carefully. Then it stopped on the mirror, right where my face would be. If I'd been standing there, I dropped to the floor. My hands were shaking. I crawled to the hallway and called the police. 2 officers came. I told them what I saw. One went outside to check. 5 minutes later, he radioed back, told me I needed to come out. Mark's bedroom window faced directly into mine. The officers aimed their flashlights, a camera on a tripod, pointed at my house. They knocked on Mark's door. No answer. Knocked again. He opened it slowly. I was standing in my front yard, close enough to see his face. He didn't look scared. He looked disappointed, like a project had been interrupted. The officers went inside. I waited, wrapped in a blanket, shaking from more than the cold. 20 minutes later, they brought Mark out in handcuffs. What they found made me sit down on the curb and put my head in my hands. Mark had cameras in 2 windows. both aimed at my house. One at my bedroom, one at my living room. He had hundreds of hours of footage. Me watching television, reading on the couch, me walking through the house in the morning before work. But the footage wasn't the worst part. On his computer, they found a folder with my name. Inside were screenshots, organized by date, labeled by what I was doing. Tuesday 7:12 p.m, kitchen window. Making dinner, Thursday 11:08 p.m, bedroom. Getting ready for bed. He had notes about my schedule, when I left for work, when I came home, what time I turned off the lights. Every night, for 5 months. The detective sat across from me at the station and asked, "Did you ever notice a smell in your house? Something unfamiliar?" I stared at him. Yes, a few times. Something sharp, like aftershave. Not my husband's brand. I thought I was imagining it. The detective nodded slowly. "We found shoe prints on your back porch. Same size as his. They're fresh, repeated pattern. He'd been standing at your back door for extended periods. Standing there, not entering, just standing outside my door at night. While I was inside, how long?" I asked, based on the wear pattern. "In the wood, months." I couldn't speak. Then the detective told me what they found in Mark's search history. Alarm system bypass methods, lock-picking tutorials, floor plans of my house model. He'd found the builder's website and downloaded the original blueprints. He knew the layout of every room in my house without ever stepping inside. And then the detective told me something that made the air leave my body. His lease started in April. We checked. Your husband's obituary was published in March. Mark moved there because of me. Not random, not coincidence. He read the obituary, found the address, searched for a rental next door, and waited for one to open up. He'd planned this before he ever knocked on my door. The brownies were part of it. The porch railing was part of it. That wide smile and the handshake. Mark is in custody. His lawyer is pushing for bail. The prosecutor says the footage alone will keep him locked up. I hope she's right. I sold the house, moved 2 towns over, new street, new neighbors. Every night I close the curtains, check the locks, turn off the lights. Then I go back and check the curtains again and again and again, 4 times every night, sometimes 5. It's never enough because Mark watched me for 5 months and I never knew. And the thought I can't escape is simple. What if someone's doing it now? My name is Elise, I'm 36, and last November, my husband Tom and I drove to a cabin in Haines, Alaska. We needed to get away. 4 months earlier, I'd lost a pregnancy. 2nd trimester, the kind you don't just get over, the kind that sits in the house with you, like another person. Tom thought a week in the middle of nowhere would help. He found the listing online, a converted fishing cabin on the water outside Haines. No neighbors for miles, mountain views and a wood stove. The price was low enough that I should have asked why. The drive from Juneau took 7 hours. The last 2 were on gravel and ice, above a black river I couldn't see the bottom of. We arrived just before dark. The cabin looked like the photos. 1 room with 1 door, windows on 3 sides, a porch facing the water. The wind was blowing hard off the channel. It hadn't stopped since we got out of the car. Tom grabbed the bags. I unlocked the door. The key stuck. When it finally opened, the air inside was stale and cold, like nothing had breathed in there for months. The wood stove was small, but it worked. Tom got it going. While I unpacked, we opened a bottle of wine and sat by the fire. The windows rattled with every gust, which was constantly. For the first time in months, I felt my shoulders drop. The water below was invisible, just the sound of it, waves hitting rock. Tom fell asleep on the couch around 10, mouth open and dead to the world. I sat up a little longer, watching the fire, listening to the wind, feeling almost safe. That's when I heard it. 3 knocks on the front door. Slow, deliberate. I froze. My wine glass was halfway to my lips. I looked at Tom, still asleep. The knocks came again. Same rhythm, same weight behind them. I stood up. My heart was doing something. I'd never felt before. Not fast exactly, but irregular, like it was trying to decide between running and stopping. I walked to the door and stopped 3 feet away. "Hello?" My voice sounded small against the wind. Nothing. I looked through the peephole. A man standing on the porch, maybe 50 years old. Dark jacket and beanie pulled low. He wasn't looking at the door. He was looking down at his hands. They were bare and cracked from the cold. No gloves in November in Alaska. That detail hit me before anything else did. The knocks came again. Harder this time. Tom. Quiet at first, then louder. "Tom," he jolted awake. "What?" "Someone's outside." They got him up fast. He moved toward the door. I grabbed his arm. "Don't open it." "Why not?" "I don't know. Just don't." We stood there, both staring at the door. A voice came through, muffled by the wood, but clear enough. "Sorry to bother you folks. My truck broke down about a mile back. Saw your lights. Hoping I could use your phone." It sounded reasonable. It sounded like something a normal person would say. Tom called back. "We don't have cell service. There's a landline. I can make the call for you." Silence. Long enough that I thought he'd walked away. Then his voice again. "I'd really appreciate it if you could just let me in. It's freezing out here." Tom's hand went to the deadbolt. I grabbed his wrist. "No, he's freezing, babe. I don't care." Something about that man's face set off every alarm in my body. Maybe it was the hands. Maybe the way he wasn't shivering. It was -15. He should have been shaking. He was perfectly still. Tom looked at me like he didn't recognize me, but he didn't turn the lock. He called out again. "I'm sorry, man. I'll call someone for you. But we can't open the door." The silence that followed was a different kind of silence. Heavier. Then the man spoke again. His voice had changed. Flatter and colder. "You sure about that?" Neither of us answered. I heard his boots on the porch. Slow, moving away from the door, toward the window. I pulled Tom back from the glass. Then a new sound. Knocking on the window. Not tapping, deliberate knocks, same rhythm as the door. 3 hits, then he moved to the next window. 3 knocks. Then the kitchen window. 3 knocks. He was circling the cabin, testing every window, like he was taking inventory. Then it stopped. Tom grabbed the landline and dialed 911. He explained the situation, controlled voice with a tight jaw. The dispatcher told him a trooper was over an hour away. Weather had caused problems on the highway. An hour. I stood at the bedroom window and watched. The man was in the yard now, walking the perimeter, slow, like he was measuring something. Then he disappeared around the far corner. We waited 5 minutes, 10, no footsteps and no knocking, just the wind and the sound of our own breathing. "Maybe he left," Tom whispered. I went to the front window, looked out toward the road. A truck was parked, about 50 yards down the driveway, half hidden behind trees, headlights off and engine dead. "Tom," he came to the window. I pointed. "His truck isn't broken down." We stared at it, a dark shape against darker trees. We didn't sleep. We sat in the living room with every light on, wood stove burning hot, a kitchen knife on the coffee table. Every creak of the cabin made us flinch. Around 4 a.m., I heard an engine start. Far away, down the driveway, I ran to the window, taillights disappearing into the dark. The trooper arrived at 4:30, sun coming up behind the mountains. He walked the property, found boot prints in the snow, around the entire cabin, every window. Size 11, he noted, tracked them to where the truck had been parked. Then he looked at us for a long time. "There have been reports," he told us. 4 cabins in this area over the past year, always remote and off-season. The pattern is always the same, knocking at night, asking to use a phone. I asked what happened to the people who opened the door. He looked at me, not through me, at me. "One of them did," he replied. Couple from Juneau rented a cabin up the channel. November last year. I waited. His jaw tightened. The husband opened the door. They found the cabin empty the next morning. Both vehicles still in the driveway. Where are they now? The trooper looked at the boot prints leading into the trees. "We're still looking." We left that morning. Didn't pack properly or clean, just drove. I called the listing owner from the road. She told me nobody had ever reported anything like that. I think about that night more than I should. I think about Tom's hand on that deadbolt and how close he came to turning it. I think about that man's voice when it changed, the flatness of it, the patience, like he had all the time in the world, because he knew eventually someone would open the door